There is no time to be lost, Battle Brothers. Space Marines, today, the enemy is at our door. We know our duty, and we will do it. We fight for our honor, as Blood Ravens, as Space Marines, and we fight in the name of the Emperor. And if we die this day, we die in glory, we die heroes' deaths. But we shall not die, no, it is the enemy who will taste death and defeat. As you know, most of our Battle Brothers are stationed in space, prepared to deep strike. Our perimeter has been prepared in the event that our enemy should be so bold and so foolish. We have placed numerous beacons, allowed for multiple, simultaneous, and devastating defensive deep strikes. The Codex Astartes names this maneuver Steel Rain, and we will descend upon the foe. We will overwhelm them. We will leave none alive. Meanwhile, our ground forces will ensure the full defense of our headquarters. We are Space Marines. We are the Emperor's Fury. The Imperium of Man stands vigilant to protect the innocent from the manipulations of the ruinous powers. Its extreme methods questionable in their implementation. Such countermeasures combat threats of greater malevolence than the human mind can bear to comprehend. Using blade, bolter, and sacrifice to stem the tide of ruination. On rare occasions, the exemplars of humanity wield the weapons of the enemy in order to turn its bite against itself. For today, we shall elucidate a creed of Astartes, noted for their psychic potency, who regardless of corrupting elements and long suffering, continue to vanguard the secrets of the Immaterium from the wicked. The enigmatic heroes of the Aurelian Crusades, the Blood Ravens. Despite the best efforts of Imperial scholars to ascertain the origins of this vaunted Space Marine creed, all efforts to uncover their founding have utterly failed. Whether willingly obscured by Imperial authorities or lost by careless remembrance, not even the highest-ranking members of this martial creed know a fragment of their genesis. Their oldest records dating back to the era of the 37th millennium, despite scant accounts pertaining to the service centuries prior by myriad Imperial scholars, inquisitorial seals mark the rare records which remain locked away in vaults of unknown progeny. Such mysterious circumstance, known to the chapter as the Unfounding, stranger still is evidence that Eldari interlopers closely guard what scraps of information pertain to the chapter's origins, guarded by the Harlequin Order upon vast knowledge worlds. What can be ascertained from the chapter's earliest recorded history is their ignominious loss of lives fighting the pawns of chaos within the Gothic sector, though Imperial records cannot verify when such skirmishes occurred, nor if such accounts even transpired. Both their chapter master and master of sanctity, slain during ambushes of the chapter's earliest recorded deeds, from the jaws of defeat, the then Bloodraven's chief librarian, Azariah Vidya, delivered the survivors to salvation as the first of his creed to assume the role of chapter master. Furthermore prioritizing chief librarians to assume the mantle of leading their men, the Bloodravens lionized the deeds of their so-called father librarian as among their greatest champions. His intimate understanding of his enemy's doctrines, allowing for his exploitation of their weaknesses. Studying the tenets of the ruinous powers to better expose their vulnerabilities, Azariah Vidya divined strategies to combat such terrible foes, not through steel, but manuscript, much to the dismay of his allies who bore the brunt of enemy aggression. Launching attacks which soundly undermine the battle doctrines and strategies of the thralls of chaos with his studies concluded. So effective were the Bloodraven's campaigns under the command of Vidya, that bystanders believed that he read the minds of his opponents. Purging the forces of chaos, including Alpha Legion sleeper cells with near-flawless efficiency, the Gothic sector rejoiced as the Bloodravens withdrew to mourn their fallen, replenish their losses, and reflect on their service. Despite the disdain projected by rival chapter masters that a chief librarian had assumed the mantle in contravention to the prescribed hierarchy of the Codex Astartes, none could deny the effectiveness of such an appointment. Continuing his gloried service for several centuries before finally succumbing to the inexorable demand of war to claim its due, Azariah Vidya had completely revolutionized his chapter's organizational structure before finally perishing in battle. Following the example of their great father, the Bloodravens studied their foes intently before launching precision strikes. Their zealous charge is bolstered with increasingly proficient librarians, as a result of Vidya's influence swelling the ranks of the librarian. Said to have written their sacred text, the Apocrypha of the Unfounding, which claims that the Bloodravens are sanctioned by the Emperor himself to retrieve lost heretical knowledge, and that they alone are capable of preventing such fell secrets from falling into the hands of those who shall misuse such artifacts. Possessing librarians far in excess of any chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, their pedigree, whilst derided by many, is nonetheless prized by elite organizations such as the Death Watch, who prioritize such experts for secondment to their order. Yet whilst the chapter for millennia staved off the malign infiltration of chaos corruption within their ranks, their meddling with the Immaterium could not last forever uncontested, and as war raged across the Imperium's domains during the 41st millennium, disaster finally struck. As chaos erupted across countless sectors of space during the era of the 41st millennium, the Bloodravens did not stand idle during the Imperium's millennia of greater struggle. Victorious during the fall of the Black Fortress of Vespa, cleansing of the penal world of Obscurus, and other noble campaigns, the first crucial step to the chapter's downfall began on the world of Cyrene. Following the appointment of Gabriel Angelos to the position of captain of the Bloodravens' Third Company, the promising senior officer returned to his homeworld of origin, only to find its people preparing for rebellion. His own father enabling acts of treason during Angelos' assessment of the blood trial recruitment efforts for his chapter. Angelos informed the Emperor's Holy Inquisition that Cyrene had turned their backs on the Emperor, and as a result were bombarded with exterminatus payloads to silence their heresy. Now bereft of a primary recruitment world, the Bloodravens turned their attentions to the Tartarus campaign as the Orc Xenos attempted to destroy the otherwise peaceful, civilized world. Leading his Third Company as they pushed back the Greenskin tide, Gabriel Angelos and his men uncovered numerous Craftwell Eldari repositories of strange relics said to aid in combating the forces of chaos. Large swathes of the populace not slaughtered by the Orcs falling to victim to the thrall of chaos. With time, the true architects of the Greenskin invasion, an Alpha Legion warband led by their nefarious lord, Baal, revealed their presence. Seeking to harness the powerful chaos artifact, the Maledictum, to achieve apotheosis as a demon prince of the blood god, Khorne, Lord Baal fell for the manipulations of his lieutenant, Sindri Mir, whilst the Suriani of Craftwell Bieltan attempted to thwart their scheme. Gabriel's battle brother, librarian Isidore Akaios, enticed by the power of the Maledictum, turned on his brethren. His death at the hands of Angelos a sign of things to come, as future Bloodravens inevitably wrestled with their allegiance to the Imperium. The resultant bloodbath between Astartes, Guardsmen, Xenos and heretics, costing immense losses of lives on all sides. Regardless of such losses, the Bloodravens carved a path to Lord Baal and witnessed his death at the hands of Angelos. Having betrayed his master to claim the Maledictum for himself, Sindri Mir began a ritual to submit his soul to the ruinous powers and revive the power long confined by the Eldar, its influence magnified by the blood spilled on the soil of Tartarus. Releasing the dormant demon with a strike of his demon hammer, Gabriel Angelos, against the pleading of the Eldari, could not allow such a powerful entity to remain confined should a chance to strike it down present itself. Withdrawing from Tartarus as the demon's essence fled, soon after the campaign's conclusion, members of an Imperial survey team uncovered the ruin of an ancient Bloodravens fortress monastery upon the world of Cronus. Dispatching 3 Bloodravens companies to cleanse the besieged world of the expansionist Tau Empire led by Commander Shasso Case, the Astra Militarum regiments under the command of Governor Militant General Lucas Alexander refused to accede to the chapter's demands to fully withdraw in order to maintain secrecy of their findings and allow the Astartes to purge the planet of Xenos threats. Inciting the infamous Dark Crusade, the Bloodravens opened fire on the Astra Militarum, the conflict further escalating with the involvement of the Wordbearers commanded by Eliphas the Inheritor, Orc-Wa of Warlord Gorguts, and Craftwell Bieltan, led by Farseer Taldir. Overseeing the deployments of the 1st, 2nd, and 4th companies, Captain Davian Fool crushed the Xenos and heretics until only the subjects of the Imperium remained. His assault of the Militarum stronghold, surrounding their recovered and restored Titan Hellstorm cannon within Victory Bay, bolstered by Militarum dissidents who refused to combat the Emperor's Angels. Ending the reign of Governor Militant Alexander, The Bloodravens regardless honored his staunch adherence to his ideals and commended his efforts, executing the dissidents who aided their cause for betraying their comrades following the death of their commissar. Awakening the Necrons slumbering deep beneath the surface of the Tomb World, their patience was rewarded by allowing the many factions of the Dark Crusade to diminish one another before entering the fray. Infiltrating the Necron subterranean complex within the Furibis Plateau, the Bloodravens demolished key structural foundations within the catacombs, burying their final remaining enemies before answering summons for their actions. Questioned by Inquisitor Mordecai Toth pertaining to their actions made against the Astra Militarum, Davian Fool rejected aspersions that his actions were heretical, yet incurred censure from his chapter master, Azariah Kairos. His faith shaken despite the plaudits made during his service to his chapter, Davian destroyed the relics retrieved from the Temple of Coronus, refusing to intervene with chapter politics due to the arguments made between himself and his chapter master. The Second Company, forevermore proclaiming the mantra, victory over death, in deference to Fool's incredible victory. A rift between the members of the Bloodravens, regardless, began to grow, allowing for further dismay to spread. Due to the integral nature of the Aurelia subsector as a recruitment ground for the chapter's forces, the battles which racked its domains imperiled the chapter's future. Initially invaded by the Greenskin Menace as their rampages ravaged the soil of Calderis, Davian Fool once again led his company as vengeance filled their hearts following the chapter's defeat during the disastrous Kuarava campaign led by the disgraced captain, Indrik Boreal. Driving the Orcs from Calderis, as reported sightings of Asuriani warp spiders within the Fellhammer mines reached Bloodraven's command, looming threats began to darken the stars of Aurelia. Redeployed to the feral world of Typhon Primaris with the withdrawal of the Orcs, the Bloodravens formed a temporary alliance with the Eldar as Tyranids of Highfleet Leviathan began to devour all life within the Aurelia subsector. Mortally wounded during the engagement, Fool's command would be assumed by Tecmarine Martellus as they relieved the ailing world of Typhon Primaris, striking down key commanders of each faction besetting their domains. The Bloodravens toiled to produce a biotoxin to destroy the Great Devourer, while simultaneously safeguarding the hive city of Angel Forge upon Meridian. Revived to the stature of a dreadnought, Davian Fool returned to the fray, fighting by the side of Sergeant Tarkus as they uncovered the treachery of Varsia Idranel, whose actions had lured the Tyranids to assault the Aurelian subsector as bait. Hoping to annihilate both the Bloodravens and Tyranids during the conflict, her plot would be foiled as the battle barge's litany of fire weakened the hive mind, allowing for its infection with the biotoxin through its feeder tendrils. Reinforced by Captain Gabriel Angelos and his Third Company during their hour of direst need, the Bloodravens slew the Hive Tyrant Alpha, which allowed for the conclusion of the First Aurelian Crusade. Though billions of souls had been saved, it would not be long before a second Aurelian Crusade erupted. The sudden appearance of their long-lost homeworld of yore, Aurelia, spat from a warp storm. Recorded to have been corrupted by the greater demon of Nurgle, Ulker the Unclean, a millennia prior, the librarian epistolary of the Bloodravens, Azariah Kairos, had imprisoned the entity within the depths of their fortress monastery, Selenon. Having returned to his chapter 5 centuries prior to the return of the capital of the Aurelia subsector, the Bloodravens had found the librarian within the Space Hulk, Judgment of Carrion, and welcomed their stalwart hero of legend back into the fold before the Hulk's return to the warp, over time promoting Kairos to the rank of Chapter Master. Concealing his corruption by the ruinous powers, Azariah had waited for the opportunity to turn his chapter to the whim of chaos, and now with the return of Aurelia, his time to strike was imminent. Confronting the Black Legion forces, led by Aragast the Pillager and former wordbearer, Eliphas the Inheritor, Gabriel Angelos led the 3rd and 5th Companies to war, as elements of the Eldar and Orcs once more beset the system. The Judgment of Carrion once more returned from the warp, requiring investigation before it once again disappeared. Force Commander Sergeant Aramus, discovering slain brethren of the Blood Angels' 5th Company aboard the Space Hulk, evidence suggested that one of its surviving members, Apothecary Galen, bore signs of Chaos corruption. As Captain Angelos and Force Commander Aramus fought to repel the Xenos, Captain Apollo Diomedes, as the right hand of the Chapter Master, ordered their forces to stand down as they encroached too close to unearthing Azariah's true intentions. Ignoring the orders of Diomedes, Both senior officers continued their advance into the lines of the Black Legion, until discovering that Azariah was the culprit for the infestation of chaos. Manipulated by Ulker the Unclean, Kyrus had escaped Aurelia aboard the Judgment of Carrion, and slowly turned his allegiance as a pawn of the ruinous Pantheon. Confronting Apothecary Galen within the camp base of Calderis, Force Commander Aramis slew the traitor to his chapter and incurred the wrath of Captain Diomedes. Unknowingly serving the whims of his corrupted master, Diomedes allowed Aramis to withdraw from Calderis as they continued their efforts to quell the invasion of Aragas the Pillager. Destroying the Black Legion warband and resealing Ulker the Unclean within Keep Selenon, despite the gains made by Aramis, the corrupted master of the Bloodravens could not allow his plans to be foiled. Declaring Gabriel Angelos as a renegade to the chapter before he could reveal his deception, Azariah Kyrus was willing to sacrifice his kinsman as Angelos withdrew from the conflict to prevent bloodshed against his battle brothers. The Second Aurelian Crusade had ignited the spark of betrayal, the beginning of the third and final crusade to cleanse their chapter of shame 10 years subsequently. Subsector Aurelia remained embroiled in perpetual conflict. Apollo Diomedes and Force Commander Aramis now joined in purpose, biding their time to oppose Azariah, awaiting the return of Gabriel Angelos before confronting the traitors in their midst. Once more combating Orcs, Eldar, and Scions of the Black Legion, the Bloodravens repelled such aggressors alongside regiments of the Cadian shock troopers, led by Inquisitor Andrastia of the Ordo Hereticus. Ready to unleash a retribution fleet upon the Bloodravens should reports of their corruption prove to be true, Andrastia oversaw the reclamation efforts of Typhon Primaris, which remained infested by Tyranids, Orcs, and traitors. Contemplating Exterminatus to be the only method to finally rid the subsector of corruption, the majority of the guardsmen deployed began to surrender to the influence of chaos, yet a chance for redemption presented itself. Returning to face Azariah Kyrus, Gabriel Angelos, upon receiving word that such Exterminatus actions would fuel a blood ritual to the blood god Khorne, could not allow Kyrus to ascend to the form of a demon prince. As Captain Diomedes confronted traitor Bloodravens upon the world of Calderis, intent on purging the civilian populace in the name of Khorne, the Bloodravens' subsequent deactivation of a warp portal upon Aurelia and rebellion upon Meridian further fueled the offerings to the blood god. Locating Azariah Kyrus upon the dead world of Cyrene, as the Inquisition proceeded to enact orbital bombardment to cleanse the Aurelia subsector of heresy, Gabriel Angelos stepped foot on the homeworld of his birth to destroy the cause of his chapter's downfall. Slaying Azarias and informing Inquisitor Andraste to halt her purge of the subsector. Though broken in spirit from the conflict, Apollo Diomedes beheld the shattered physical form of Angelos. Returning him to the chapter to tend to his wounds, Gabriel Angelos stood proud as a hero to the chapter and assumed the mantle of Chapter Master, rooting out the remaining traitors in their midst and leading the Bloodravens to restore their tattered reputation. Since the sundering of their original fortress monastery of Selenon, henceforth these Astartes roam the stars as a fleet-based chapter. Encompassing several strike cruisers and battle barges, which protect their flagship, the Omnis Arcanum, their mobile fortress monastery houses the chapter's gene seed repositories and vast archives of knowledge. Each battle barge housing its own librarian to accommodate the Bloodravens' excess numbers of librarians compared to typical Astartes chapters. Each records the deeds of their respective company when deployed, far from the main body of their fleet during protracted campaigns. Exchanging information gleaned from battle with the Omnis Arcanum upon their return to the fleet, their Librarium Sanctorum burgeons with each successful crusade, epitomizing their chapter motto, "Knowledge is power." Such widespread deployments exacerbating their ability to induct new Astartes candidates into the fold. Unlike the majority of Space Marine chapters, the Bloodravens benefit from a wide range of planets to recruit aspirants into their ranks in order to compensate for such limitations. Each planet's populace breeding a higher than average amount of psychers, the Bloodravens foster beneficial relationships with such worlds to capitalize on recruiting such promising aspirants. Typically drawn from the worlds within subsector Aurelia and the Corianis sector, such as the feral worlds of Calderis and Typhon Primaris, for many centuries, neophytes conscripted from Hiveworld Meridian proved insufficient to survive induction trials. Training such aspirants within each capital ship of their fleet, their gene seed reserves are spread across several implantation chambers within such vessels. The chapter's future further imperiled with the loss of Calderas to Greenskin Butchery, reclamation of the Tomb World, Rahay's paradise by the Necrons, exterminatus of Cyrene's corrupting influence, and bioconsumption of Typhon Primaris by the Great Devourer seemingly determined the chapter's survival as hopeless. Revivified by Lord Commander Rabute Gilliman's dispatch of Primaris Space Marines to reinforce their numbers, this long-beleaguered chapter, regardless of such an influx of such genetically pure auxiliaries, cannot identify the origin of their bloodline. Tested routinely by the Adeptus Mechanicus for signs of gene seed mutation or chaos corruption, no evidence has been forthcoming of any signs of heresy, despite numerous clamoring attempts. Their abnormally large pool of librarians causing many to speculate their ties to the infamous Traitor Legion, the Thousand Sons. Several strange accounts bear credence to such a belief. On a surface level, their hunger for knowledge mirrors closely to that of the Sons of Magnus, their dabbling with the fell secrets of the Immaterium damning many of their number to the thrall of chaos, as they uncover forbidden secrets. The resemblance of their chapter icon to the Corvidae cult of the 15th Legion, further embellished by Remembrancer Callista Eris, her visions of ravens of blood, lost, crying out for salvation, and their unknown father, attributed by many to actually be referencing the burning of Prospero by the hands of the Vilca Fenrica. Comments made such as "Lost Brother" by the exiled chief librarian Arzek Araman to librarian Ramar upon the world of Arcadia during his conflict with the Prodigal Sons, also vague in its implementation. Whilst debate between the validity of the ties between these two factions remains, it must be said that to believe the words of a traitor is to willingly submit to their manipulations. Diligently accruing tomes of arcana to be sealed within their Librarium Sanctorum, their unhealthy curiosity for lore and curios leads to an obsessive need to discover knowledge at the expense of bystander safety. The immense volumes of potential secrets housed within their archives restricted to prevent an unholy enlightenment within their ranks. The siren call of madness is too much to bear for even the wisest minds of the chapter, should they delve too deep into their pages. Minimally codex compliant in their formations, the Bloodravens, whilst retaining several noticeable similarities to the tome's doctrine in several ways, divert from its prescribed outlines. Their record-keeping, exceeding even the legendary founding chapter's archives, their extensive overabundance of librarians allows for the accrual of battlefield data, vaunted deeds, and the retrieval of pertinent artifacts. Respecting the teachings of the Codex Astartes battle doctrines, due to its continued reliable wisdom 10,000 years after first being drafted, the Bloodravens regardless deviate from its advisements should a more optimal resource of strategy present itself. Predicting the movements of their enemies prior to launching their attacks, the Bloodravens rely heavily on their librarians' advisements due to the stunning victories achieved when acceding to their divinations. Proven dangerous due to the recent events in the chapter's history, the Bloodravens' willingness to never deviate from strategies once engaged cost many casualties to their number with the corruption of those they relied on so heavily. Their companies complying with the Codex's protocols on size, combat specialization, and training standards, the first major deviance from convention is their appointment of librarian advisors to every company commander as standard. Allowing for members of the Librarius to assume the rank of company commanders should their senior officer fall in battle, it is common practice that gifted psychers maintain leadership postings within outposts, voidcraft, and even captaincy roles. Maintaining squads comprised solely of librarians within their first company elite, only missions of the direst import require such bespoke forces to be deployed. Re-examining many of their traditions following the betrayal of Azariah Kairos and appointment of Gabriel Angelos as their current chapter master, the chapter's focus on the elimination of the servants of chaos as a priority has not seemed to affect their reverence for the Librarian Creed. Fielding an honor guard, as is typical of a Space Marine chapter, the Bloodravens also utilize specialist carders to effectively utilize their psychic influence over the warp. The most capable librarians of the chapter form the Secret Ordo of Psychana, leading armies of servitor thralls on missions to recover ancient archaeotechnology and relics of humanity's long eroded past. Secret Masters of the chapter, comprised of veteran Astartes, advise their chapter master on the best course for the Bloodravens. Their insight of secrets gleaned from the warp, sworn to secrecy, yet whispered among themselves to achieve optimal strategic outcomes. The training to become a Bloodraven's librarian among the most deadly trials a psychically gifted Astartes can face. Those who fail in their initiation are executed to prevent becoming conduits for demonic possession. Those two mutated to be silenced with a single bolter shell, constrained with pentagrammically warded chains, and taken to the Tower of the Omnis Arcanum, studied by the chapter's librarians in search for signs which cause their failure to succeed in order to prevent future calamity. Wary of the legacy left by the Thousand Sons Legion and their naive downfall, under the stewardship of Gabriel Angelos, the chapter have begun to hone self-reliance without the direct supervision of librarians, orchestrating alternative contingencies to rely on throughout their service, with the added variable of chaos corruption within their own ranks. Whilst the Bloodravens still value their Psyker brethren, they must regardless factor the chance that they may one day turn against them. The potency of their librarians, regarded far and wide as among the finest of the Adeptus Astartes, such is their power that even the clandestine Grey Knights are known to them. Trusting the Bloodravens enough to dispatch a task force to aid their efforts during the Dark Crusade, whilst remaining hidden from the prying eyes of all other active combatants, the sanction of the Ordo Malleus for the chapter is regardless not shared by its peers. Aware of the corrupting influence of chaos within the ranks of the Bloodravens during the Aurelian Crusades, the Ordo Hereticus for a time pursued action to barrage their fiefdoms within the Aurelian subsector with exterminatus payloads. Increasingly beset by Tyranid and Chaos forces, the actions of Gabriel Angelos prevented calamity as the Puritan Inquisitor Andrastia stayed her hand, the righteous deeds of their newly elected chapter master earning them leniency as the watchful eye of the Inquisition remains fixed on their deeds. Fervent in their worship of the Master of Mankind, in excess to most chapters of the Astartes Creed, though they do not perceive the Emperor as a god, they nonetheless deem him as the mightiest of any being as they shout their battle cry for the unknown Primarch and the Emperor. Their librarians' war cry that knowledge is power, guard it well, epitomizing their veneration of information, which allies them closely with the priesthood of Mars. Often accompanying Mechanicus Explorator fleets to aid in mutual discoveries of archaeotech and long-forgotten relics, the Bloodravens deny malevolent enemies of the Imperium technologies they might use to harm its domains, whilst benefiting from gifts of the Adepts of Mars to bolster their own arsenal. Wary not to form official pacts or bonds which may interfere with pre-established relationships of the more technologically savvy Astartes chapters, both parties are content with missions made purely out of self-interest, wherein both shall be rewarded with spoils of their toil. Fastidious in their record-keeping as their archives burgeon, though their past is lost to time, the chapter refuses to allow others to befall their fate as orphans of history. Their insatiable hunger for knowledge exposing them to heretical threats, many chapters deride their probing attempts to discover secrets not meant for even the Emperor's angels. Routinely stirring confrontation with the Inquisition when leading armies of servitors to excavate potentially dangerous artifacts. Despite the protestations that their actions are made to thwart the archenemy, the Bloodravens rarely provide sufficient proof of their assertions. The censure of the chapter by the Ordo Malleus and Hereticus, following the Third Aurelian Crusade, stalled by the emergence of the Great Rift. Imperial authorities now find themselves busy with more pressing issues, and seemingly have abandoned further investigations. Standing less than half strength, and now cut off from the wider Imperium, the Bloodravens ordered all hands to support ailing worlds within the Aurelian subsector, as the Cicatrix Maledictum continued to spread. Located by an emissary Imperatus custodian of Rabute Guilliman's torchbearer fleets, the Bloodraven 7th Company, commanded by Captain Atanaxis, established contacts with the servants of the throne. Informed of the Avenging Sun's appointment as Imperial Regent and creation of the Primaris Space Marines, after a very tense meeting, the Bloodravens received the means to replicate this new breed of Astartes. Now fully integrated into the Bloodravens' ranks, sightings of these indomitable soldiers within the Somnium Stars are a sight to behold, as they purge the enemies of the Emperor with renewed vigor. Clad in dark red ceramite, adorned with pale white pauldron insets, black trim, and gesticulars, the chapter elite often adopt golden ornamentation to signify their command. Marking their tactical role with black paint on their right pauldrons, with white high Gothic numerals atop such designs to symbolize their squad. Their knee plates adopt the outline color scheme of the Codex Astartes, to designate their company. The symbol of their chapter, a red blood drop imposed atop a black raven in flight, though reminiscent of the legacies of the Blood Angels and Raven Guard, it does not bear credence to genetic ties to such primogenitor chapters. Prioritizing research into the gene seed of their Primaris Space Marine kinsmen to ascertain the true identity of their Primarch lineage, though the apothecaries and librarians of the chapter have gained understanding of integrating their own Primaris into the fold, none know if they have succeeded in discovering the nature of their origins. For should the most disparaging claims of their lineage be true, perhaps it is better to keep such facts buried for the sake of the Imperium. For while knowledge is power, it can nonetheless be used to harm those naive enough to misuse it. An open mind is like a fortress, with its gates unbarred and unguarded. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. It is said that real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance, a mantra which reflects the Bloodraven's struggle to identify their gene heritage. Though their deeds made in the defense of the Imperium are vast, they regardless suffer betrayal from within, caused by the hubristic notion that knowledge without wisdom is a noble pursuit. Knowledge is power, and power is dangerous, wielded by those without the grace to utilize such influence for the benefit of those in need. Seek comprehension of the world which surrounds you. Inform yourself of its grandeur and flaws, yet never forget the path to omniscience deadens one's compassion for those who remain ignorant. For it is not knowledge that makes a person wise, for wisdom is achieved through its implementation, not its wasteful aggregate.